This is part 2 of our lesson on parallel and perpendicular lines. So we just did an investigation on some parallel lines where we said parallel lines have the same slope, and we are now going to investigate how do the slopes of perpendicular lines compare. So lines that are perpendicular are lines that cross at 90 degrees. So these two lines on my picture, if I were to measure that with a protractor, should cross at a 90-degree angle. So we're going to try to compare the slopes. So I'm going to try to find the slope of line 1, the slope of line 2, and then see if we can make some type of conclusion. So they're not labeled, and that's okay. You're welcome to assign whatever you want. I'm going to let this maybe be point 1, and then the one that's going down to be line 2. So I am going to start with that pink line, the first one here. I like to find the y-intercept if I can, and then try to count out the slope from there. So this one here, the first clean point I have appears to be here, which would be 2 squares up and 3 squares over. And if I do that again, 2 squares up, 3 squares over, I am still on the line. So I feel confident that the slope of this line is going up 2, and we're adding 3 onto our x. So this has a slope of 2 over 3. I don't know if you noticed, but it's actually the same line as it was in the first example on parallel. Okay, so our slope for that line was 2 over 3. Now if I take a look at the other line, I'm going to start by finding its y-intercept, which is down here at -2. And I'm going to try to find another point. So I'm looking for one where it looks like it's on the corner of a grid line, which I think might be there. So I'm going to check. This has gone down 1, 2, 3, and over 1, 2. So I'm going to do it again. 1, 2, 3, over 1, 2, and I am still on that line, so I feel like we're good. So here, we didn't add, we weren't going up, we went down, so we subtracted. So I subtracted 3 from y, but I still added onto x, and I added 2 onto x. And I know that I added because we started at 0 and now we're at 2, so we're getting bigger. If we had gone backwards, we would have subtracted. So the slope of this one is -3 over 2. Okay, so what do I notice about the slopes of those lines? Well, I have 2 over 3 and -3 over 2. I notice that one of them is positive and one of them is negative. And I also notice that the numbers appear to be flipped over. So here I have 2 over 3, and here I have 3 over 2. So there's a very fancy word for this. Slopes of lines that are perpendicular are what we call negative reciprocals. We're going to write it down first, and then we'll write down kind of what that means. So I'm going to say the slopes of perpendicular, it is such a long word, lines are negative reciprocals. Lots of big words. So negative reciprocals. Now, what does that mean? The negative part means that they have opposite signs. So one should be positive and one should be negative. And then the reciprocal part means that the fraction is flipped. So when two lines are parallel, they have the same slope, but when two lines are perpendicular, they have slopes that are negative reciprocals. So the two slopes, one is going to be positive, one's going to be negative, and the fractions should be flipped. So we will take a look on our next part at some different slopes and what they would look like if they were parallel or perpendicular.